Welcome to On Air. In this podcast episode, we will tackle using AI from the data privacy lens.
I mean, imagine getting like 10 hours of your life back every single week.
Oh, wow, yeah. That would be massive for any educator.
Right. Just, no more agonizing over field trip permission slips at 5 in the evening or starting from scratch on some giant grant proposal.
Exactly. Or spending your whole Sunday drafting differentiated reading materials for the classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of time-saving reality that AI is promising right now. But if you try to take that shortcut using the wrong tool, you could actually accidentally commit this massive violation of federal privacy law.
Yeah, it's a really high-stakes environment out there. The sheer volume of AI tools flooding the education market makes it incredibly difficult to separate a genuinely useful, secure assistant from a platform that's just, quietly harvesting your data.
It really creates this paralysis for anyone navigating ed tech today. You just want to know what is actually safe to use. And so that's the core mission of this deep dive.
Right, getting past the hype.
Exactly. We are putting all the flashy bells and whistles aside for a moment to focus on the absolute foundation of any technology used in a school setting, which is data privacy.
Because without a rock-solid understanding of how your data is handled, none of those generative features even matter. You simply can't deploy the tool in a professional capacity.
So true. So we're going to look specifically at how Google's Gemini operates within a school account. We're pulling insights from EdTech expert Eric Kurtz, digging into official Google for Education documentation, and looking at their recent enterprise updates.
Which are huge, by the way.
They really are. We want to unpack the mechanisms that fundamentally change how an education account treats your data compared to like a normal account. But, and this is a big but, we are also going to highlight a massive non-negotiable exception specifically for you, the listener, if you are teaching in Suffolk Public Schools.
Yeah, that's a really critical point. Understanding the overarching tech is only step one. Knowing how your specific local policy governs your interaction with that tech is what actually dictates your day-to-day workflow.
Definitely. So to really grasp why Gemini for Education is being touted as uniquely secure, we first need to define the baseline problem with just normal consumer-level AI.
Right, the open web stuff.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to a standard AI chatbot on the open web, you are essentially operating in the Wild West. Eric Kurtz points out that when you use those free public versions, the company behind it gets this enormous amount of leeway with whatever you type into the prompt box.
Yeah, because the underlying business model for most consumer AI relies on data ingestion. I mean, they outline in their terms of service that they can utilize the text, the documents, whatever data you upload.
Wait, really? Just anything you put in?
Pretty much. Sometimes that means human reviewers at the company might actually sample your prompts to assess the quality of the AI's responses.
That is terrifying for a teacher.
Oh, absolutely. And more critically, they often feed your content back into the system to train future iterations of their large language models. They might even build profiles based on your interactions for, like, targeted advertising.
Wow. Okay, so using a normal consumer AI for schoolwork is essentially like taking your student's essay, walking into a crowded public town square, and just taping it to a public bulletin board.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I mean, anyone walking by can read it, record it, and use that information however they want. For an educator bound by strict privacy laws, that scenario is an absolute legal nightmare. It highlights the total lack of control. Once the data leaves your immediate environment and enters a consumer AI platform, you've just lost jurisdiction over it.
So we clearly cannot be taping sensitive information up in the public square. We need a way to pull the AI into like a soundproofed office, close the blinds, lock the door, and put the files in a fireproof cabinet so the data physically cannot leave.
Exactly. Which brings us to the recent changes Google made for their workspace for education users. They rolled out this thing called enterprise-grade data protection across the board, even for schools on the free fundamentals tier. But my question is, what is the actual mechanism making that secure? Because enterprise grade sounds reassuring, but without knowing what's under the hood, it's just marketing jargon.
Right, sounds like a buzzword. But the security doesn't come from like a simple software patch or a settings toggle. It comes from a fundamental reclassification of the service itself. Google officially designated Gemini and NotebookLM as core services for their education customers.
Oh, I was reading about that distinction in the notes. When an application becomes a core service, it's no longer treated as some separate experimental side project, right?
Exactly. It gets brought entirely within the school's official digital infrastructure.
So what does that actually change legally?
It's a crucial pivot. By designating it a core service, these AI tools are now legally and technically governed by the exact same stringent terms of service as Gmail or Google Docs or Google Drive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they inherit the same technical support guarantees and the exact same contractual boundaries regarding data ownership and privacy.
Okay, so the Wild West experiment has been totally walled off. The sources outline the specific privacy hub for generative AI in Google Workspace that details what this looks like in practice. Let's unpack the tangible mechanisms of this protection because it directly counters the fears we just talked about.
Sure, let's go through them.
The first major guarantee is that your content, meaning anything you enter into the prompt, any files you upload, the responses, is never shared with anyone outside of your school's domain.
Right, it creates a completely closed loop. The data remains strictly within the tenet of the educational institution.
And the second guarantee feels, honestly, like the most significant one to me. Google states they absolutely do not use your workspace content to train their generative AI models.
Yeah, and that goes back to the mechanism behind model training we mentioned earlier. Large language models improve by continuously ingesting massive amounts of human-generated text.
Right, to refine their algorithms.
Exactly. In a consumer setting, if you draft a highly specific email, the system might absorb your phrasing, your context, or your specific situation to make its future responses smarter for other users globally.
Which opens up a terrifying risk of data leakage. I mean, I could write a prompt detailing a really complex conflict resolution strategy for a student, and theoretically, the AI could regurgitate fragments of my specific scenario to a stranger halfway across the world.
Exactly, which is why turning off that training pipeline entirely for education accounts removes that risk. Google is contractually bound to ensure that your interactions with Gemini do not influence the underlying model's weights or behaviors for anyone else.
So it just answers me and forgets it.
Yep. Your data is processed to generate your immediate answer, and then it is just discarded from the training perspective.
That's reassuring. Now, another layer of concern with consumer AI is the human element, which brings us to the third guarantee. Your content is never reviewed by human eyes. There are no Google engineers periodically sampling your prompts.
Which is a vital assurance for maintaining professional confidentiality. Even if data is anonymized, the idea of a human reviewing educational workflows is just a non-starter for most institutions.
Totally. And to round out the protections, the fourth guarantee ensures your data is never used for advertising purposes. This has been the standard for Google Workspace for education for years. You don't see ads in a student's Gmail account. But they've formally extended that prohibition to the generative AI tools as well.
And those four parameters,
Yeah.
no external sharing, no model training, no human review, and no advertising, that is what allows Google to legally ring-fence the data.
It's locked down.
Very locked down.
Yeah.
Because they isolate the information so thoroughly, they're able to function legally as a compliant school official under FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act.
Right, and by acting as a compliant school official, Google is legally positioned as an extension of the school's own staff when it comes to safeguarding records. The documentation also notes compliance with COPPA, ensuring children's online privacy, plus HIPAI, FedRAMP-High, and all these ISO certifications.
It's a serious alphabet soup of compliance.
It really is. So from a purely technical and legal standpoint, this soundproofed office is heavily fortified.
It is. And EdTech expert Eric Kurtz synthesized all of these technical and legal realities into a very practical rule of thumb for educators.
Okay, what's the rule?
He concluded that if it is currently appropriate for you to save certain data to your school's Google Drive, then it is now equally appropriate for you to use that data in Gemini with your school account. The logic relies on the fact that both services are governed by the exact same legal agreement.
Okay, stop right there, because I need to push back hard on this on behalf of the listener.
Oh, absolutely. Jump in.
If you are sitting in Suffolk right now, listening to all these compliance standards and Eric Kurtz's logic, you might be thinking, fantastic, the system is secure, the law is satisfied. I can finally use this AI to analyze a spreadsheet of my students' reading scores.
Right, you'd think that naturally.
But this is where the local reality completely overrides the general technical capability. If you are an educator in Suffolk Public Schools, you must not put any work or documents containing student information into an artificial intelligence platform, period.
Yeah, that is an absolute boundary.
I mean, none of it.
Right. That prohibition includes Gemini, it includes Notebook LM, and it includes literally any other generative tool. No student names, no ID numbers, no grades, no behavioral notes, and no writing samples.
Just absolutely nothing that could be considered personally identifiable information.
Exactly. Regardless of the enterprise-grade encryption.
Now, I can imagine that feels totally contradictory to some listeners. We just spent all this time establishing that this system is a highly secure vault, legally compliant with federal privacy laws. Why build the vault if the district forbids you from putting the most sensitive, important files inside it?
I get the frustration, but the distinction lies in the nature of the technology itself. A system like Google Drive is essentially static storage. You put a file in a digital folder, and it just sits there until you retrieve it.
Like a real filing cabinet.
Exactly. But generative artificial intelligence is a fundamentally different type of architecture. It is an active processing engine. When you feed data into a large language model, it's analyzed, broken down into tokens, and synthesized in ways that are just vastly more complex than simple storage.
Oh, I see. So even though Google has turned off the training pipeline and walled off the domain, a district like Suffolk Public Schools is prioritizing an abundance of caution.
Yes, precisely. The technology is so new and the back-end processing is so complex that they are simply not willing to gamble with student identities. Protecting student data is the highest ethical and legal priority for a school district.
Which makes total sense.
It does. Until the long-term realities and potential vulnerabilities of generative processing are universally understood, tested, and normalized, maintaining a zero-tolerance policy for personally identifiable information in AI systems is just a prudent, necessary safeguard.
So Suffolk is making it clear that the risk, no matter how theoretically mitigated by the software provider, is simply not worth taking. But that brings us to a very practical dilemma.
What's that?
If you are an educator who cannot feed any student data into this tool, does the AI still hold value? Like, are we effectively locking teachers out of the productivity revolution because of these privacy constraints?
Oh, far from it. Actually, when you remove student data from the equation entirely, it clarifies exactly where AI is most powerful for an educator.
Really? Where is that?
The true value lies in tackling the administrative, planning, and creative heavy lifting that consumes hours of a teacher's week outside of active classroom instruction.
Oh, this goes back to the statistic we mentioned at the start. Teachers in Northern Ireland reporting they are saving up to 10 hours a week using these tools.
Right. They're not achieving that by having the AI grade student essays. They're achieving it by using the AI to conquer the blank page.
Okay, give me some examples. Consider the routine communications required in a school week.
Sure. Drafting a weekly newsletter to parents about upcoming curriculum topics, or writing a comprehensive field trip permission slip, or outlining a grant proposal for new classroom technology.
Oh, yeah. None of those tasks require a student's name or personal data.
Exactly. But they all require significant cognitive effort to draft from scratch. You can give Gemini a bulleted list, say, the destination of the field trip, the cost, and the departure time, and it will generate a polite, professionally formatted permission slip in seconds.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
But what about the actual instructional material? How does a teacher use this for lesson planning without crossing the line into student data?
This is where the tool becomes a highly strategic assistant. You can provide the AI with a specific state standard and ask it to generate 5 different engaging lesson hooks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or you can ask it to build a comprehensive grading rubric for a generic project based on specific criteria you define. Or take a complex historical text and ask the AI to rewrite the core concepts at a 5th grade reading level, and then again at an 8th grade level, to support different learning needs.
Okay, I see. You are manipulating the curriculum content itself, not analyzing the students. You are building the scaffolding for the lesson, completely independent of any individual student's profile.
Exactly.
Let's dig into how some of the specific features within Google's ecosystem facilitate this, because the platform has evolved significantly beyond just a simple chat window. I was looking at the deep research feature in the notes. That seems designed for a much more rigorous level of inquiry.
It really is. Deep research fundamentally changes how you gather information. Standard AI interactions are typically geared toward quick, synthesized summaries. But deep research is designed for complex, multi-layered questions.
How does that look in practice?
Well, If you are developing a new social studies unit and need historical context synthesized from multiple primary and secondary sources, the AI will conduct a comprehensive sweep of information and generate a detailed report, complete with citations, in a matter of minutes.
That is incredibly useful for ensuring the curriculum you're building is robust and well-sourced. I am also really fascinated by the concept of gems. The documentation describes them as a way to create custom, personalized versions of the AI.
Yeah, the mechanism behind GEMS relies on something called system prompting. Instead of starting from scratch every time you open the AI, you pre-program a specific persona, a set of rules, and contextual knowledge. You essentially build a specialized colleague.
So I could theoretically create a gem that acts as like a strict instructional coach.
Absolutely.
I could feed it the pedagogical framework my school uses, and then whenever I drop a lesson plan outline into that specific gem, it will critique the lesson based purely on that framework.
That is the exact use case. You establish the parameters once, and that customized assistant is always on standby to provide targeted feedback or creative brainstorming within those specific boundaries.
That is so cool. Another feature the sources highlight is Canvas. It's described as a more interactive workspace compared to the traditional vertical chat log.
Canvas shifts the dynamic from a simple conversation to a collaboration. It opens a dedicated workspace where you can write, edit, or code side by side with the AI.
Side by side, how does that help?
Well, if you are building a complex, interactive study guide or a multi-part quiz, Canvas allows you to see dynamic previews of what you are building. You can highlight a specific paragraph of the text you just wrote and ask the AI to adjust the tone or expand on that single point without losing the context of the entire document.
It sounds much closer to a collaborative word processor than a simple Q&A bot. And, oh, we should also mention audio overviews. This feature really speaks to the multimodal capabilities of these new systems.
Oh, the audio features are incredible.
Right. If you have generated a massive text document, perhaps one of those deep research reports we talked about, you can use audio overviews to instantly convert that text into a conversational podcast format. Two AI voices will dynamically discuss the material.
Multimodal processing is a significant leap forward. The system is no longer just predicting text. It's fluently analyzing and generating across audio and visual formats. This opens up entirely new avenues for how educators can consume research or how they might eventually present material.
It really does. But underpinning all of these varied features is the core model itself, Gemini 2.5 Pro. And the sources explicitly mention that Gemini 2.5 Pro, particularly in the educational context, is powered by something called LearnLM.
Yes, LearnLM.
How does a model designed with LearnLM actually differ from the standard algorithms powering consumer tools?
It comes down to the intentionality of the design. Standard consumer models are optimized for efficiency. Their goal is to provide the user with the most direct, synthesized answer as quickly as possible.
Right, just give me the answer.
But LearnLM is an architecture specifically grounded in educational research and learning science. Its primary function is to stimulate curiosity and promote active learning, rather than simply functioning as an answer key.
Wait, how does it actually achieve that in practice? Does it refuse to give you the final answer if it determines you are trying to bypass the work?
It employs pedagogical strategies like Socratic questioning. If a user approaches it with a complex problem, LearnLM is designed to guide the user toward understanding the underlying concepts by asking clarifying questions or breaking the problem down into manageable steps.
Oh, wow. So it actively attempts to keep the user engaged in the cognitive process?
Exactly. It's acting as a tutor facilitating discovery, rather than a machine just dispensing data. Furthermore, the model includes specific youth-friendly onboarding and integrated AI literacy resources.
That's smart.
It is. It's designed to help users understand the limitations of the technology. And one of the most critical features built into this environment is the double-check response function.
Which is absolutely vital, considering the well-documented tendency of large language models to hallucinate information or just deliver factually incorrect answers with complete confidence.
Precisely. When a user asks a fact-based question, they can utilize the double-check feature. The system will automatically run parallel search queries across the web to verify its own generated text.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, it highlights statements that are corroborated by external sources and flags statements that might lack evidence. It forces the user to engage in critical evaluation of the AI's output.
It basically trains the user to be skeptical of the machine, using the machine itself. I love that. So we have this profoundly powerful, legally ring-fenced condensed tool that is actively grounded in learning science.
Yes, we do.
But navigating all of these features, understanding how to build a gem or how to properly prompt learn LM without violating privacy policies, that requires a significant skill set. If you're an overwhelmed educator, how do you even begin to build that foundational literacy?
Well, deployment without training is a recipe for frustration. That is why structured, accessible professional development is essential. The sources highly highlight the Google AI Educator series as a primary resource.
Okay, so for anyone listening who wants to move beyond the basic chat window, this is the resource to look up. The Google AI Educator series.
Definitely. The series is constructed specifically for professionals who do not have hours of free time. The courses are bite-sized and modular. And more importantly, they don't just focus on the technical functionality of the buttons.
Right, it's not just a software manual.
Exactly. They focus on the pedagogical strategies. They teach educators how to integrate the technology into their workflow safely and effectively, emphasizing the very boundaries and use cases we've been discussing.
It is the difference between knowing how to turn on a machine and knowing how to use it to actually improve your craft. And, this rollout isn't just a burden on the individual teachers either. The school administration has a significant role to play in managing this new infrastructure.
Oh, absolutely.
When an application is a core service, the administration isn't just flipping a switch and hoping for the best, right?
Right. Enterprise-grade software provides enterprise-grade oversight. School administrators utilize systems like Google Vault to maintain a comprehensive view of the environment.
What can they see in Vault?
They have the capability to search Gemini conversations within their domain, export records if an audit or review is necessary, and monitor broader usage metrics across the institution.
So an administrator can look at the analytics and see, for example, that the science department has deeply integrated the tools into their planning, but the history department hasn't logged in at all.
Exactly. They can identify the power users who might be perfect candidates to lead peer-to-peer professional development, which allows the district to be strategic and proactive with their training resources. Visibility is the cornerstone in a secure, managed digital environment. You cannot manage what you cannot measure.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, moving from the technical backend all the way to the daily realities of the classroom. To synthesize the core insights for you, the listener, using Gemini within your official school-provided Google Workspace account is a fundamentally different paradigm than using an open web consumer AI.
A completely different ballgame.
Yes, you are operating inside a closed, highly secure environment. Your data is not being used to train future models, it is shielded from human review, and the system complies with rigorous federal privacy laws like FERPA.
It's a fortified infrastructure equipped with features designed specifically to support learning science and alleviate the administrative burden on educators.
But the ultimate takeaway, the rule that supersedes all the technical capabilities, is the mandate for our listeners in Suffolk Public Schools.
Cannot stress this enough.
Despite the enterprise-grade encryption, the closed loops, and the FERPA compliance, you must keep all student information entirely out of any artificial intelligence platform.
No except.
Exactly. The AI is an extraordinary assistant for your planning, your broad communication, and your curriculum development. It is never an acceptable place to process a student's personally identifiable data.
Balancing the remarkable productivity gains of this technology with an unyielding commitment to student privacy is the exact equilibrium educators must find in this current landscape.
That is how you gain the 10 hours back without compromising your ethical or legal responsibilities. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought about where this is all heading. Throughout this conversation, we have discussed AI mostly as a discrete tool like a specific application you open, a prompt box you type into, or a canvas you work within.
A distinct destination that you consciously choose to visit.
Exactly. But with the rollout of integrated systems like Google Workspace, these models are no longer confined to a separate website. The AI is moving directly into the margins of your Google Docs, into the compose window of your Gmail, into the very fabric of the software interface you use constantly.
It's everywhere.
It is. So here's the question for you to ponder. As artificial intelligence shifts from being a tool you pick up to an invisible assistant integrated into every keystroke and every document you create, how will our definition of a safe digital classroom have to evolve when the AI is no longer a separate place, but the very environment itself?